I'm pleased to be here today to speak on behalf of my co-author, Guy Cameron. The partnership we formed in writing our manuscript was personally rewarding and really essential for successful completion of the project. And so in honor of that partnership, we decided to determine the order in which our names appeared on the cover with a coin flip. This was the first venture of writing a book of this sort for either one of us, and so we are grateful for the wonderful support and assistance provided by the editor-in-chief and the talented staff at the Ohio University Press. Our book is published in cooperation with Ohio Division of Wildlife, and indeed many of the reports and surveys published over the years by the division provided a foundation for many of the species accounts in our book. And so it's appropriate that my first opportunity to speak about Mammals of Ohio is at this venue. I thank Kate Parsons for inviting me, and I'd like to acknowledge all the folks in the division who work so effectively year after year to make the Ohio Wildlife Diversity Conference the premier conservation venue forum in Ohio. So why the subtitle, Surprising Diversity in Form and Function? To sense the surprise, we need first to think about the remarkable diversity in body size, shape, locomotion, and modes of feeding in mammals worldwide. The 30 orders of mammals pictured in this phylogenetic tree provide a striking example of adaptive radiation, a hallmark of mammals, of the class Mammalia. Think, if you will, of the tiny 4-gram Cinerea shrew feeding under the snowpack in Canada versus a 200 blue whale filter feeding in the ocean, and all the other body forms and taxa in between. The surprise in the Mammals of Ohio is that many of the modes of feeding and locomotion seen in the 6,500 species worldwide are also seen in 55 species and just 7 orders of mammals in Ohio. Shown in this are aquatic, cursorial, running in the deer, fossorial, moles, and a really beautiful example of ambulatory or plantigrade locomotion where the heel is firmly on the substrate, as in humans and raccoons. More examples of diversity of Ohio mammals are the arboreal fox squirrel, the gliding flying squirrel, and of course powered flight in bats. In this talk, I will review the salient features of a representative species from each of 4 of the 7 orders of mammals in Ohio, shown here in red. These are the species and their features that Guy and I found most interesting. They also represent the 4 largest orders of mammals in Ohio. 21 species of rodents live in Ohio, about 38% of the total. 13 of these are rats and mice, but a full third are squirrels. 4 are arboreal, like the gray squirrel and its relatives, the fox squirrel, as well as red squirrel and flying squirrel. And 3 more species are burrowing ground squirrel types, chipmunks, 13-line ground squirrels, and the woodchuck. We chose the flying squirrel to represent Rodentia because it's a striking example of diversity in form and function in a mammal in Ohio. The flying squirrel does not actually fly, as in the powered flapping motion of birds and insects and bats. It glides, but it is and with 2 other species in the genus Glaucomes, it is the only mammal in Western Hemisphere to do so. The unique feature of this squirrel is a loose fold of body skin that extends from the wrist of the front legs to the ankles on hind legs. forming a wing-like gliding surface when the legs are spread. The furred tail is flattened and serves as a rudder when the squirrel is airborne. Note that the front feet are not modified for flight, but are adapted to four-legged arboreal locomotion as in other squirrels. Unlike most squirrels, flying squirrels are strictly nocturnal, and so gliding occurs in the dark, apparently with the aid of excellent night vision. Gliders first climb to an elevated perch in a tree and then leap with legs outstretched so that the patagium forms an airfoil. Gliding squirrels make turns of 90 degrees or more to avoid obstacles such as tree trunks and branches on their way to an intended landing site. As the squirrel approaches a landing site, the tail is raised, forcing the rear down and the head up and bringing the hind legs into position to absorb the shock of landing. Glides of 6 to 9 meters are typical, but glides of 30 or 50 meters are not uncommon. Next up for review with a representative species is the order Eulipotifla, more commonly known to many of you as insectivora. This includes the shrews and moles. I think it's safe to say that after writing 55 species accounts, Guy and I found moles to be the most fascinating and interesting of all mammals in Ohio. This group includes the hairy-tailed mole with limited distribution, and shown here the eastern mole, which is our most common mole that some of you may be familiar with in your lawns or golf courses. And the upcoming star of this review is the star-nosed mole. The star-nosed mole is a mammal of the Northeast with a distinctly northeastern distribution in Ohio. The most striking feature of the star-nosed mole is a ring of 22 fleshy tentacles that surround the nostrils on the tip of the snout. The surface of each tentacle is supplied with 800 to 2,000 pressure-sensitive Eimer's organs, totaling some 25,000 throughout the 22 tentacles. When a tentacle touches the soil or a potential prey, several adjacent Eimer's organs transmit action potentials to a greatly expanded somatosensory neocortex in the brain, where sensory input is processed to provide the mole with a detailed tactile image of the object. Although the tentacles might seem delicate for a fossorial lifestyle, star-nosed moles are most often found in wetlands with muddy soil, and in fact they are semi-aquatic and forage by dangling their tentacles in water over muddy sediments. They are among the fastest of mammalian foragers. Tentacles tap surfaces at high frequencies, 10 to 15 times per second, enabling the mole to identify and consume prey at incredible speeds, around 4 prey per second. Shown here is a drawing of the skull of an eastern mole. If it were a star-nosed mole, you would see that the upper and lower incisors project forward in a tweezer-like fashion, which are used to precisely grasp prey, which differs from, as shown here, the mole incisors are curved downward and backward. As much as anything, I'm taking the opportunity in talking about mole incisors to call attention to the skull drawings by Charles Swartz and Elizabeth Swartz, which are, in my opinion, the very best, truly exquisite drawings ever made of mammalian skulls. We thank Dave Rosenbaum, director of the Missouri University Press, who granted us permission to include 18 of these wonderful drawings in Mammals of Ohio. Reason enough to buy our book. Carnivora. These are Ohio's 13 charismatic ones, species that attract the attention and imagination of the public. Their hunting behavior is a subject of countless nature shows, and I have found among the carnivores of Ohio the hunting behavior of the red fox to be particularly interesting. Red foxes hunt about 5 hours a day, mostly at night, but at other times of the day, depending on availability of prey. They hunt over home ranges of about 1 to 2 square miles. Their long legs and light body weight, only about 10 pounds, enable an efficient trotting pace over long distances between foraging areas. These adaptations and a keen sense of hearing enable the red fox to be an effective predator of small mammals, which are typically hidden by vegetation, snow cover, or the darkness of night. Foxes hunt small mammals by listening for low-frequency sounds, down around 8 to 10 kilohertz, that mice make in moving through or gnawing on vegetation. And they are highly sensitive and can accurately locate the source of such sounds at this frequency. When the sound of a prey is detected, the fox lifts its head on high, cocking it from side to side to localize the source. The fox then crouches deeply and lunges forward, arching through the air and landing with his forefeet through the vegetation and, ideally, pinning and biting the mouse below. Distances covered by such leaps may be short, 1 or 2 meters, or impressively long, 3 to 5 meters in length. It is hard to overstate the importance of bats to mammalian diversity, ecology, and evolutionary biology. Nocturnal flying insects represent an abundant and nutritious food, but only bats have evolved a form and function to fully exploit this rich resource. Birds largely forage during the daylight hours, and those that feed on flying insects at night, nightjars and nighthawks, represent less than 1% of avian diversity. Contrast that with 1,400 species of bats, about 21% of all mammalian species, second only to rodents. This success in locating and capturing small flying insects in the dark is achieved with echolocation and highly maneuverable flight. Chiroptera is Greek for hand wing, and indeed the wing is the most striking morphological feature of bats. The bones of the front foot are homologous to those in the hand of humans, but of course highly modified, elongated for flight. Specialized skeletal and muscular adaptations provide highly maneuverable flight patterns in bats. Bats emit pulses of high-frequency sound, 10 to 150 kilohertz, which are reflected by small objects such as insects. The time interval between emission of a sound pulse and its return as an echo provides the bat with information as to the distance to the reflecting object. These are the basics that we can understand, appreciate with our own experience with echoes. However, to capture a flying insect or moth at night, the information content of the echo must be highly detailed with regard to speed and direction of travel of the prey, as well as its size and density. Think of the difference between moths and bats. The neural processing of this sensory input to form images of flying prey in the brain is poorly understood and indeed well beyond our imagination. Bats typically catch insects in their wing or tail membrane, sometimes making mid-air somersaults as they transfer the prey to their mouth. Declining diversity and abundance of bats is perhaps the most serious issue confronting mammalian conservation. All 10 species of bats in Ohio are listed as either species of concern, threatened, or endangered. Details declines in abundance are due to several factors, including white nose syndrome, wind turbines, and a decline in the prey species, that is the flying insects. And shown in this photograph is the fungal hyphae that form on the skin surfaces of the bat and stimulate arousal and ultimately physiological decline in the species or the individuals. A long list of interesting possibilities, I have chosen the Hoary Bat as the featured species of Chiroptera. Hoary bats have the wide distribution of all American bats. However, they are relatively uncommon throughout their range. With an average body mass of 26 grams and a wingspan of about 14 inches, the Hoary Bat is the largest bat in Ohio, a good bit larger than the red bat and much larger than an endangered Indiana bat, weighing in at just 6 grams. The Hoary Bat is one of 4 tree-roosting bats in Ohio, the other being the silver-haired bat, the tricolored bat, and the closely related red bat. All are more or less migratory. The Hoary Bat begins moving south for the winter in early autumn, August to October. As with other bats in Ohio, Hoary Bats mate in the fall, but fertilization is delayed until the spring, when the females emerge from hibernation, begin foraging, putting on weight, and then finally ovulating. Litter size in Hoary Bats are 2, but the neonates are enormous, weighing in at 4.5 grams, representing up to 35% of maternal body mass. Interestingly enough, the red bat, closely related, has a large litter of 4 or more, but they're small, only about half a gram each, about 10% of those of the Hoary Bat. Hoary bats fly rapidly along straight-line paths when foraging, typically above rather than within or below the canopy. Like red bats, Hoary bats can be seen pursuing insects below streetlights, where their flight speeds have been recorded up to 17 miles per hour. Might soon be reproducing in eastern Ohio. However, all but a few of the 10 species of bats are now threatened by white nose syndrome and other factors. Moreover, nearly half of all mammals in Ohio are small, less than 100 grams. Rodents, shrews, moles, and weasels. Many are difficult to study in the wild, and current distribution and abundance are known with any certainty for less than a third of this group. Clearly, more research and surveys are needed, but those of us in this room can help by reporting our sightings of rare mammals to the Division of Wildlife, and by sharing with others our interest and knowledge of the full scope of mammalian diversity. Guy and I hope that our book will stimulate the growth of that interest and knowledge. Thank you.